Ooh. Hey, y'all. Oh, you know what I don't have set up? My mic.
On here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there goes.
The radio mic is.
That'll be enough. That should be enough.
Well, you know what? That mic we only use when. Hey everyone, it is Wednesday. You are listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key and we are selling Sacramento. If you were tuned in to last week's show and in honor of Black History Month, we are normalizing this month. Last week we normalized equity. Today we will be normalizing home ownership. The subtitle of today's show is The Conversations That We Should Be Having in Our Homes and Our Communities. And so, to get today's show started, we want to talk about the importance of homeownership, the disparities of homeownership, the process of homeownership, and the steps involved in that process. So, get your pencils and papers and pens and pads all ready. Not only are we going to discuss this, but we will have the radio lines open, the phone lines open in the event that you want to call in and give us your feedback. We want you to join into the discussion. Also, on today's show with me, I have a very special guest. He is no stranger to you all if you listen to this station at any given time. Mr. Jay King, President and CEO of the California Black Chamber of Commerce and resident historian on all things Black history.
Not all. Not all. I'm always learning.
Right. And we appreciate that. But the extent of your knowledge and how much you retain and your passion for the things that you believe in and fight for, just it says a lot about who you are, your character, and why you're in the position that you're in here at the chamber. So we're glad to have you on the show today. And again, if you just tuned in, we are talking today about normalizing home ownership. And I want to start with the importance of home ownership. My grandmother always said, if you own your own home, can't nobody put you out. That's just can't nobody put you out. That's how she said it.
Yeah, and that's the basic tenement for Black folk. But really, home ownership is the foundation of wealth building.
That's the second point. That it's a wealth building tool. Those are the two main points that I'd like us to kind of dig into today. Oftentimes people want to emphasize the tax benefits. And of course, those are great too. And there's some other benefits to home ownership. But the main two, I believe, for our community is that number one, can't nobody put you out. And number two, it is the biggest wealth building tool. Can you talk a little bit about the wealth building tool part?
Well, first of all, we have to, if you go back to 1910, African Americans, 8 million of us lived in the United States, and we collectively owned 15 million acres in 1910.
Mm-hmm.
In 2022, there are 43 million of us. So we're 5 times plus population-wise, from 8 million to 43 million. And yet we own 98.5% less land. We're only 1.2 million acres, all of us. All 43 million of us collectively own 1.2 million acres. And so there's a disparity report that says by 2053, if we continue in the pattern that we're in now, the median Black wealth will be 0.
Right.
So how do you get to that number? Well, there's some systemic issues that have taken place. There are some things that took place with the housing crisis when the market fell out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folk were in homes barely, and once the market fell out, once the value fell, the value of a home, African American homeowners didn't have the wherewithal to stay afloat. And so we ended up losing 25% of our home ownership just in that time period. So there are systemic things, and this is where, as we talk about what some people call reparations, I'll call the debt that's owed to us, as we talk about this debt,
Mm-hmm.
that we must address home ownership as a main tenement to it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that I love the idea of normalizing home ownership. It should be normal for us to become adults and purchase a home,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just a starter home first, and then as we become more successful in what we do, or we become more solvent from a financial standpoint, that we can move into a larger home, a bigger home, a better home. But
Right.
it should be normal for all human beings to own a home at a certain point in time.
Right, right. And so to that point, the title of today's show, calling it Normalizing Home Ownership, the conversations that we have in our homes will determine
Mm-hmm.
the outcome of what we have in our lives, right? I remember being at an event where a friend of mine was teaching a group of young ladies over in Meadowview, in the Florin Meadowview area, and they were probably between the ages of maybe 10 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked them a question. She posed the question, what do you want to be when you get older? And I would not have expected to hear what I heard, but it shocked me and it never left me. One of the young ladies said, all I know is that when I get older, I want to get the welfare check, because when my mama gets the check, she goes and gets her nails done.
Mm.
That's the conversations that are being normalized in that household, right?
Absolutely.
In order for her to say that, when posed a question, what do you don't want to do with your life? And that's where you go to, that was heartbreaking.
Well, I mean, it's the conditioning of our community that life is going to be a struggle, that, you're not going to become wealthy, and, God is going to take care of you
Just pray.
in the end.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And we have to be honest enough to say that when it comes to our leadership hasn't spoken about financial literacy,
Right.
about home ownership, not to us, not on a large scale, about economic empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, those are conversations that we allow to be normal, because even within our communities, there are some that think they are overlords to our community. They look like us. They want to overlord the community, and
Mm-hmm.
and to be frank and honest, they probably don't want the community to grow and become wealthy and solvent, because then they
They'll be
can't
out of a
overlord.
job. Yeah.
And a lot of what they do is based on them doing the job of the overseer.
Right.
And it's why, I say the people are way more powerful than they know. The communities are way more powerful
Mm-hmm.
than they know. And it's our job and that's what I love about your show. I love the context in which you have these conversations. I know sometimes it's uncomfortable. Uh, they don't happen often. They don't have to happen often enough. But we have to start pressing the needle on ourselves.
Yes.
It's not just about what happened with within this country with our government, because our government committed crimes against us, and we can't get away from that.
Mm-hmm.
You can never run from the fact that the American government committed crimes against its own people, who just happen to be of a darker hue,
Right.
people that look like you and I.
Right.
And for that crime, they have to pay the debt.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have to say, within the context of who we are
What
as
can we
a
do about
community,
it?
what we can do,
Right.
why we have these conversations, why this show exists.
Right.
And just, the number of people that you helped get to the space to home ownership, normalizing it, making it a normal conversation. It should
Right.
be normal within the confines of these United States. And when we talk about the debt that's owed to us, what some people call reparations, one of the tenements should be that 25% down payment on a home is part of that package,
Right.
so that we can normalize it, number one. And number two, the debt is owed to us can be partially paid in that from that aspect, and the land that was stolen from us
Hmm.
by our government through the Bureau of Land Management and the criminal acts that they allowed to happen against us that took our land from us.
And so you're pointing out the actions that the government should take to make up for those moments in history where, and they're very pointed moments throughout history,
Absolutely.
where African Americans, where America had an opportunity to make
fix
up
it.
and
That's right.
fix it, but they chose to kick the can down the road.
Well, you look at 1944, World War II, 1.2 million African American men fighting that war. That's when the GI Bill comes into play.
Hmm.
Now, if you access the GI Bill, you get to own a home,
Right.
and you get to get a free education.
Job opportunities, free college education, a bunch of
Right.
things came with that
Right.
package.
Now that package is now a federal program. But when it
Mhm.
first started, it was a state by state program.
Right.
And so here you have a state by state program that's ran by states with men that don't see African Americans as equal. And so 1.2 million African American men were denied
Hmm.
the right to own a home after defending this country. And
Right.
what it did was this: it made their white counterparts, if they bought a home, 20 times wealthier than them.
Yes.
If they took advantage of the education process, 40 times wealthier.
Right.
So when we start looking at this gap, this wealth gap,
Hmm.
it's not because white folk did everything right and we did everything wrong.
Right.
It's because the
There were
game was stacked against us.
strategic
That's
obstacles placed against us. And what year were you saying that?
Right. 1944.
And so it would not be until over 20 years later that the housing
That's right.
rights bill, which made it illegal to discriminate in housing, which is 2 decades later, which is an entire generation later, which is when you think about how long it takes to, it is a statistic in marketing that it takes 8 times for a person or a consumer to see a consistent message to get that thought built in their head that this is what is true, whatever the message is.
Right.
So that's why you see commercials playing back to back, because they're trying to infiltrate your mind with a message. And so if the message of the day was that Black people were pretty much property themselves,
Right.
definitely not worthy of living in the neighborhood, let alone next door to me.
Absolutely.
Now, if that was the message of the day for 20 something years, just because you create a law
doesn't mean that it's going to go into effect.
But it don't change my mindset.
Let's go back to 1917. On the floor of Congress, Congressman said the greatest threat to America is the Negro soldier coming back from World War I, believing he has the same inalienable rights as a white man.
Right.
This is on the floor of Congress.
Right.
And the congressman said, this is white man's country.
Mm-hmm. That was the thought. That was a belief.
Absolutely.
That was their truth. They were walking in their truth, ladies and gentlemen. And that truth still marches on today. You can't just create a bill or a law and expect that the way someone feels about a thing is going to go away. It takes actionable steps, as those that are happening these past few years, especially in light of George Floyd, the George Floyd incident, because we can't unsee that. And these young folks who are these days celebrating Black culture are like, oh, heck no. Y'all not taking down, Black culture is a symbol of them, of who they are. They're walking in the things that we create freely. And so I really believe that it is these young people and young white people in particular that are kind of leading this bold fight these days.
Well, I think it's young people in general, and because the world is changing.
Mm-hmm.
But in the changing of the world, we have to never forget the historic impact that, from a negative standpoint, that it's had on us. Mm-hmm. Because 1917, you have congressmen saying the greatest threat to America is the Negro soldier. By 1919, you have the Red Summer that most people don't even know about. 25 major cities destroyed by white mobs destroying
Mm-hmm.
Black communities, our economic base.
Mm-hmm.
Our dollar in these years are circulating 100 times before they leave the community.
Mm.
The closest dollar to us is the Jewish dollar, and it circulates in this community 40 times. So our dollar circulated in our community up to 2.5 times more than even the closest dollar to it, the Jewish dollar.
I love that you bring this up because this points out when people say, well, you just need to pick yourself up by your bootstraps. And you're pointing out, well, we were.
Right.
And we weren't just picking ourselves up by our bootstraps.
We were
making
thriving.
the boots.
No, yeah, we were thriving.
Right.
And so you go from a thriving community to a destroyed community from the foundational aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So 1919, you have the Red Summer.
Mm-hmm.
1920, we're able to vote, because you remember from 1914 to 1920, we can't vote.
Right.
I'm sorry, from 1906 to 1920, we can't vote. 14 years. Blacks are allowed to vote again with the woman suffrage movement, because by 1920, now women, in particular white women, are able to vote, because up to that point they couldn't. And then you have the destruction of those communities where Black people tried to vote with the poll tax. They said that if you had to pay a poll tax, and you had to be able to read, and there were certain
types of things set up to stop us.
So you have that, and then and our communities are flourishing. You have, people go to Tulsa, Oklahoma, but they don't talk about Harlem. They don't talk about Raleigh, Durham. Mm-hmm. They don't talk about Wilmington, North Carolina. They don't talk about Nashville, Tennessee. They don't talk about Elaine, Arkansas. They
These
don't talk about
didn't make
Rosewood,
the history
Mississippi.
Books.
And what happened in Tulsa just happened to be the one thing that stuck.
Right.
But what happened in Tulsa happened all across the United States.
Right.
It was a normal action.
A normal way of
Yeah. So we're normalizing. So we want to normalize home ownership the way
they normalize sabotaging
and actions were normalized in that
time. And it's so the irony of how normal it was to terrorize Black communities,
and that's what it was.
And that they now don't want to talk about it.
Or pretend that it didn't happen, or pretend that it doesn't have an impact on us, or pretend that it doesn't affect our mental health today.
And that's why we have to have this show talking about normalizing home ownership, because it did have an impact on us.
And it does today.
Yeah, it still does.
And so I just wanted to get involved in the conversation. I have a meeting, but I just wanted to say it's a great conversation. You always have great shows. And a lot of people, whenever I see people in the streets, they always say, I love the lady that does the
Selling Sacramento.
Yeah. So,
we appreciate you taking the time being here. He's got to take off, y'all. But we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to continue talking about home ownership, the process. With him, we just covered both the importance and the disparities. So we got through all of that during our first portion. But when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about the process and the specifics involved in normalizing home ownership. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key, and we'll be right back. Hey, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching out there, say something. Chime in. Put something in the comments. Oh, hey. I know this song. So because I didn't bring my my mic.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
The little globe thing.
Yes, I might have. I normally don't take. Oh, okay. I took it out. Oh, I know why. Because I had a Zoom meeting and I used it. So that means I need to keep one in the bag, so I don't not pack it.
Right.
But that's the one that I use for those who are listening so that they can hear better. So that one is if there's a guest via Zoom. That's why I said, we don't need it.
Okay, I got you now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute now. I can catch the volume. I'm good.
Yeah, so I'm going to pull this back over. Unless you want me to just push this over here now that he's gone and use that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this one's good.
I'm going to find you wherever you go.
Okay, then I'll just keep it right here.
Okay.
All right.
I was going to say that to both of you when you during the break. If you're comfortable where you are, just stay where you are. But if you want to move, we can make the adjustment now.
Okay, I think we're cool. All right. Let's see. Oh, these glasses. Can y'all tell I don't have any eyebrows today?
No, unless you keep pointing it out.
I just pointed it out.
Well, stop it. I didn't even catch it until you pointed it out.
Well, I have eyebrows. They just don't. They're not as coiffed as they normally are.
Right.
It's gonna have to be all right. The show must go
on your word.
The show must go
and on. If they're focusing on that, then they really come to your show anyway.
This is true. This is true. You know you're right.
You know me and my attitude.
Yes. Like, you right, you right.
I'm the man that had a black and white TV as long as I could in the front room.
Not a black and white TV.
Oh, I mean, black and white, right?
Oh,
had a nice color TV in my bedroom.
No, Dosty.
Why you got a black and white TV? I said, you know why? Because if you came up to visit my TV, go home anyway. If you came to visit me, then you probably could come in my room and watch the color TV.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I tell you, pray for me. I'm trying to keep working.
Really? I just thought to myself, I'm just gonna pray for you.
Yeah.
It's a black and white TV today, but what is it in the future?
No, I got better. It's actually 55 inches there. But before that, it was a 25-inch color. Because like I said, man, if you can't visit my TV, man, no.
Then keep stepping.
Yeah, keep on stepping, man. I ain't with that. So now we're just doing like 3.
Yes.
So we don't get kind of
Hey, you guys. Say something in the comments. Hey, you are listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key, and on today's show, we are normalizing home ownership. Before we went on the break, we had the California Black Chamber of Commerce president, Mr. Jay King, in here delivering, as he always does, regarding Black history and home ownership and the disparities and the importance of home ownership. And we talked about using home ownership as a wealth building tool. Well, we started talking about that, but then we quickly got into the disparities, because you can't talk about using it as a wealth building tool when we're having conversation about home ownership for Blacks without talking about the disparities, because there were so many times throughout history where our opportunity to thrive financially via land ownership and housing opportunities, the GI Bill, other opportunities that were taken away from us intentionally by the U.S. government. And it is history. And I know people probably get tired of hearing about it. You know, it's like, here we go, talking about that again. Here, that's all they ever talk about. But guess what? If we are having conversations about pick yourself up by your own bootstraps, if we're having conversations about why the numbers for Blacks in home ownership are always low, then we have to address where that came from. There's a reason why we are here today. We have to address that. And we can't fix it without looking back to see what happened. Because guess what? There is a law, 1968 Fair Housing Rights Law says it's illegal to discriminate. Shouldn't that have fixed everything? But it didn't. And you know why? If you were listening before the break, you know why. Because you can't change people's attitudes about things just because you create a law. It takes time. It takes infiltrating the culture. It takes normalizing the act. It takes old generations, unfortunately, dying off, or changing their mindset, or changing their heart. And it takes changing belief systems. That is not easy. It's not easy. And so you do have the younger generation. It's no mystery as to why the younger generation are spearheading this effort for equality for all. because they are not as exposed and entrenched in the past as their forefathers. The George Floyd incident, we can't unsee it. Other incidents that happened, the cell phone once again has become the champion for African Americans. Old white dude mishandling his cell phone, texting messages to people he should not ought to have. And a message went to a black coach applying for a head NFL job before he was interviewed, saying that he got the job. Only problem was that text wasn't meant for him. So you get situations like that where, had it not been for the cell phone capturing the moment, it would not have made headlines at all. It would have quietly disappeared, gone away, and we never would have known it had happened. And imagine the death of George Floyd not happening, or the death of George Floyd happening at a time if we didn't have cell phones. That incident and episodes like it were happening all the time. All the time. It just took the cell phone to capture it. Technology is a big game changer for African Americans at this time. So, with that, I want to talk about the process. I'm looking online. We are online on Facebook and YouTube. So I'm just looking at the comments online, and want to make sure I answer any comments. Hidden and pushed under the rug. Yes, Nikki, it definitely would have. She said yes, wrong Brian. Right. And then Estelle says, good show and information. Thanks to Jay King for that information. Knowledge is power. Looking forward to the rest of the show. I try to catch it each week. You're doing an awesome job keeping the community informed. Thank you, Miss Estelle. Thank you, ma'am. And Belinda says, hi, listening and learning. Thank you all. Thank you all for tuning in. And as Jay stated before, it's important that we use our platforms like this to inform our community about right information and get us on track with best practices and the things that we need to do to build our wealth. So we talked about the importance. Can't nobody put you out your house if you own your own home. That's what my grandma said. Can't nobody put you out. You know, I don't know how many times I have been contacted by someone and it breaks my heart. They've received a 30-day notice or a 60-day notice. Sometimes they just moved there, you know, just a few months ago. I've only been here for 3 months and my lease isn't even up. And the owner's telling me that when my lease is up, they're selling the house. So the sad part is that the owner has a right to do that. The hard part is now, where do I go? What do I do? You know, and how do I find a place in this kind of market to own? And rents are already higher than mortgages. That's why 5-10 years ago, I probably couldn't say that rents were higher than mortgages. I think we were actually saying rents were lower. And normally you go and rent because it usually is lower, right? But as inventory squeezes and it's tight, and it's still tight, and you guys, it's going to be tight for the next 5 to 10 years. Do you hear me? I just joined the Building Industry Association. So y'all are going to be getting even more information. They let your girl in and with open arms, and are including me on just a ton of wonderful information. And as much as I can come back and share, I'm going to share so that we are all in front of this stuff before it hits. We're playing chess. We're not playing checkers. We're playing chess. And so I want to make sure that you guys are aware of this information, the new home construction that's coming down the line, and the amount of new home construction coming down the line, even if it's not affordable, will mean that for those who do own homes, it is affordable. And so they will then move out of those homes into the new homes, freeing up their homes, which gives us more inventory. Although we do want them building affordable new homes that we can purchase, that the average person who's making $40,000 to $60,000 a year can purchase, because that's the right thing to do. Anything else is criminal. So that's why home ownership is important, because can't nobody put you out. And it's a wealth building tool. I have a client who recently, they bought a home. I helped them purchase a couple different times, and they bought up into their forever home back in 2008. Fast forward to today, 2022. In 2008, the home was about 300 something thousand on the high end, close to four. And they bought it when the market crashed. So they got a great deal. Want to know how much that home is worth today? $900,000. It appraised at $900,000. So guess what they did? They took equity out of the house. They bought not one, not two. They have plans to buy more. Right now, they're in escrow on two investment properties. One of them is out of state. One of them is a new home construction in Houston, Texas, 200 something $1,000, brand new construction. It fell out of escrow. I had a lead over there, not Houston. I take that back. It is by A&M. A&M. Yeah, it's by Texas A&M. It's called College something, but brand new construction. It fell out of escrow. So it still had the sold sign in the yard at the builder's development. An agent that I connected with over there found it, because she lives right down the street, sent me the link, sent them the link, went over to the builder. They saw it that morning. They were in escrow that evening. And I'm not saying it can happen that fast for you, but I'm saying that because they had this home that they bought years back, now down the line, they're able to utilize their equity. And what did we just say about investment properties, about rentals? Rentals are investment properties, by the way. When you hear the term investment property, it means that you buy it to hold it, and you put somebody else in it who lives in it, and the rent that you collect from them pays your mortgage. We just said that rents are now more than mortgages. So the rent they're going to get on that home is going to more than cover their mortgage. It's in a college town. They were very strategic about, where they were looking. And the rent is over $2,000. It's going to more than cover their mortgage. These houses for them are a part of their retirement package, because we also know that over time, real estate does what? It goes up. You might have dips where you go up and down over a period of a couple of years, but it's trending upward as it's going up and down. Wealth building tool, right? So they were able to utilize their home that they bought in 2008 after the market crashed. Here we are now, over 10 years later, they're now using it to build more wealth. So those are the reasons that home ownership is so important. And it's not something that's difficult to do. I had a client ask me the other day or the other week, should she buy? She's in a good position with where she's renting. Her landlord, she's been in the home, I want to say over 7 or 8 years, something like that. Her landlord has never really raised the rent. I think she said by maybe $25. So her rent right now is super low in a very nice home in Elk Grove. Yes, that's what we would call blessed and highly favored, right? And so she's cruising right now, stacking her money and trying to decide, should she buy a home to live in, or should she buy an investment property? I said, honey, explore both options. Because if your rent right now is cool and you buy an investment property, if you're able to get an investment property, you can get someone in to pay that rent, have that as part of starting to build your portfolio, your so you don't feel pressured into buying the home that you would live in. Sit back and wait and see what happens, a few years from now. But just wash, rinse, repeat. Buy investment properties. If your rent is straight, otherwise you're going to get in a position where you're going to lateral over into something less than what you're in already, because whatever you can afford to pay in rent today is not equal to what you're going to be paying in a mortgage. If you're paying $2,200 a month in rent, you're probably living in something, if you've been there for more than a few years, we're talking about 4 or 5 years ago type of rent, then when you buy, that $2,200 a month is not going to buy you what it would when you were renting 5 years ago. If you're renting today at $2,200 a month, you're probably in a 1,000 square foot something, because rents again are so high, right? So it's a wealth building tool. And now we want to talk about the process. It's important to talk about the process because for us as a people, as a culture, in order to make stuff happen, and I want to use that phrase, sometimes we employ methods that are not the most, they're just not right. Sometimes they're under the table, or we just don't know what to do. And so we don't do the right thing. We misstep. And then when it hits the fan and starts to unravel, it doesn't unravel in our favor because we didn't take the right steps. I often see and am saddened by moments when people have to come to me and ask me how to help them unravel a specific situation where a home is concerned. Whether it's because somebody died intestate, meaning without a will, without the home being in a trust, and now this person's living in the property and they won't move. How do I get them out? And they might have a very legitimate story. All it takes is one person living in the home to cause a problem for everybody else. If the paperwork is not in order, what ends up happening is tenant laws fall on the side of the one person who's being belligerent. And so it's really important to make sure that you understand how acquisition or acquiring or getting a home, how it should happen, not how Uncle Tommy left it, or this is what Mama said she wanted to have happen, or, Big Mama always wanted so-and-so to live there. That won't cut it in a court of law. And so I want to talk a little bit about the process. There are 3 ways that we acquire property. Number 1 is by inheritance. And just because I call it number 1 doesn't mean it's the main way. One of the ways is inheritance, inheriting a property. Another way is by purchasing. And then a third way is being gifted. Somebody just gives you a home, right? Getting a home any other way, be suspect. Be suspect. When people take advantage of sitting and squatting in a home, there are laws on the book that make that legal if you do it over a certain period of time. But we don't want to travel down that road. That's gray. And you never want to engage in an act of doing something where it's offensive to people, where everybody is not benefiting. And people who squat, people who make it a point, make a career out of squatting for home ownership, it's just not a respectable field. That's not, our forefathers would not be proud of you for doing that. Can we just say that? That's not the way that we want to be acknowledged and known, because there is a right way. There is a right way. And so one of the biggest things we want to be aware of is that how title is held on the property is the most important factor, meaning whose name is on the title. What do the law books, what do the records say about who owns this home? And there are a number of ways that title can be held. And if you don't hold title in one of those numbers of ways, there is no court of law in the United States that is paying any attention to you if you don't go the right route. So if someone is trying to give you property, if someone is trying to gift you property, if you are trying to purchase property, if you inherit property, the best way by default to ensure that your transaction is on the up and up is to use a reputable title company. It's their job to vet all of that information and to make sure that title is being changed over to you legally without dispute. And should there be any disputes, they get the brunt of that. You don't. It doesn't fall back on you, it falls back on them. That's what using a title company is for, because throughout that process, when you close, when you actually finalize on all of the documents, it's called closing escrow. And through that process, you get title insurance, which then insures and assures if there are any challenges to you owning the property, they will put up a front, they will put up a defense on your behalf. They have to accept it. The fight then becomes theirs, and you get to rest at night. And this is when you do it the right way. So if you are in the process of inheriting property, make sure you're using a reputable title and escrow company. If you are in the process of purchasing, make sure you're using a reputable title and escrow company. If you've been gifted property, make sure you go through title and escrow, even if it's for the purpose of inquiring what should you do. They would be more than happy. If you don't know any title and escrow, reputable title and escrow officers, I have several companies that I have worked with and that I work with now. So reach out to me if you want that information. Go to my website at agentkee.com, agentkee.com. In the top left corner, it says chat with Kee. Shoot me an email or a message. Let me know that you want to talk about it, or just shoot me a message through the website and say, hey, can you send me a number to a reputable title and escrow company? We got a situation coming up. Big Mama passed away. She left her house and she didn't leave a will. Shoot me an email and let me help get you straight, because we want to make sure when you have the opportunity to have property, that's an open door. That's a window of opportunity to help you build wealth. And at that point, at that moment, you want to make sure that that you don't misstep. You don't want to find out later what you should have known now while you have the opportunity to build wealth. If you pull the trigger on something because somebody is in front of you telling you this is what you need to do, and you don't get advice from anywhere else because all you see is quick dollar signs. Somebody could be telling you, oh, I'll give you $10,000 right now. And you might think, oh my goodness, when's the last time I'd ever had $10,000? I'll take it. What do I need to do? And you miss out on the opportunity of having $100,000 or $500,000. Why do you think they're offering you 10? Mm-hmm. How much they gonna get from it? Right? So get the information from the experts and the professionals who can help ensure that you actually get an opportunity to build wealth with the opportunity that you've been given if someone gifts you property or if you inherit property. Another thing that I thought of as I'm talking about that is when you're in probate. Some of you listening right now might be in a situation where property is being probated, and that's where somebody has died and left property without leaving it in a trust. And so now it's gone to the state, and the state is mitigating who gets the property, making sure that the person, the deceased owner's bills have been paid, assigning someone to be the authorized person over the property who gets to speak on behalf of the deceased and make sure all the bills and things get paid, and also has to make sure that if there are any heirs, they get paid, and that if a probate attorney is involved, that probate attorney gets paid. When there are heirs and when there is a probate property, it is public information. It becomes public information. Be very careful, because there are companies out there that are just like payday loan companies. They say they go online, or they go and search the records, and they look and see approximately how much the value of the property is worth, because that has to be put in the court documents. What's the estimated value of the home? Oh, it says it's $450,000. How many heirs are there? Oh, there's 3 heirs. So they start doing the math, because when it's a probate property, all of the fees are according to percentages dictated by state law. So you can go in and find out how much the attorney is going to make. If you do the calculations, you can see based on that number how much the attorney is going to make. You can estimate, if there's a real estate company involved and they sell the house, what that percentage might be. And then the bills, if there are any bills, if there are any lien holders, what are they going to get? What are they asking for? The balance is left over to the heirs. So let's say the balance leaves $50,000 to each heir. Guess what you're going to start getting in the mail? You're going to start getting letters from these companies, these probate companies, who are saying that they will give you your inheritance in advance. And all you have to do is sign on the dotted line. You got to be very careful of that for quite a few reasons. Number one, the number that they are looking at on the court document could be totally false. Oftentimes, a lawyer is just taking a number perhaps from Zillow. And we all know how much we can rely on a Zillow's estimate, right? So it might be more, it's usually more than what the house is really worth, or less than. We don't know. But that's where they get their information from. So that number could be wrong, and it could leave your estate in bad shape. Let me put it to you that way. Somebody could be left holding the bag. Number two, the interest rates. Can we just talk about the interest rates? This is a part of that type of lending where they're coming after a certain type of person because they know who you are. They know that you don't have money like this, and you'd be more than happy to turn over your inheritance. If you're getting 50,000, okay, I'll take 30,000 now, and you can have my whole 50 when it closes. Or I'm being pretty generous. They may only offer you 20 or 25 for your entire 50 in exchange. You guys, I have to take a break. When I come back, we're going to finish up. But again, be very careful of those individuals when they come after you. Tell your siblings or heirs or whoever to throw those things in the trash. Do it the right way. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I'm Agent Key, and we'll be right back. Hey, Miss Heidi. How are you? Thank you. Hey, Squeeta. Thank you, dear. Learning for the next home. Yep. Very predatory. Yes, predatory lending. That is the word I was looking for, Belinda. I wish I would have looked over at your comment. Hey, Glenn, sir. How are you? You're welcome. You are so welcome. Thank you all for tuning in. Let's see. Did I miss any other comments? Good. Oh, you got back to back.
Oh,
Okay.
this was the rotation.
Oh,
Man, I love the piss on this.
not the P.
Oh, I don't think I have done a show since she put this in here that I haven't played it. Man,
Really?
I love this song.
Oh my gosh, she would be so
I was
happy.
like, whoa. No, but I told you that day.
It's just
I love
amazing
the
how,
first one,
yeah,
but man, that thing came out like, uh-oh.
yeah. It's amazing how simple the music is,
Right.
but the message
But the message.
and her voice,
But
you know?
it helped her for the music to be simple, right?
Yeah.
So you don't over pay attention to the music and miss the message. Man.
And her voice is so beautiful.
Oh, she has that neo soul thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, that Jill Scott
Yes.
Badu kind of thing.
Jill Scott, Erica, and India. All rolled up in one.
Yeah. Because I was like, oh, no, man, I told her that day because I was, kind of, I was kind of happy just a little bit. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute now. I said, little girl, go in there and give me your information so I can tell you this thing. I'm gonna help you get there with this.
Yeah, I love it.
A couple times I will say too.
Can y'all hear the music?
And I said, listen.
Can you turn it up a little bit? I don't have my speaker. Oh, it is? Oh, shoot.
Because we're going to do 2 minutes.
I know. Next time, y'all. We had the artist of that song on the show last week. Her name was D Sings. Yeah. And Dosti put her music in the rotation. She was so excited. She's a young college student. And she, oh my gosh, she is just so talented, super talented. Erica Badu, India Ari, and Jill Scott talent all rolled up in one. And her music is her music has for the time messages. And it just, it's like nice drive music, but then it's also, it's very chill, but it's very good too. Yeah. So if y'all get an opportunity, Google her, look her up. D-Cings, not S-I-N-G. The letter D, C-I-N-G-S. She's on Instagram. She's got a powerful song on YouTube about the killings, the Black killings by police. So if you look her up and listen to that, that's pretty deep. D Sings. I'm going to type it in here. D-C-I-N-G-S. That's how she spells it.
The song is called 2020.
Oh, yeah. The song is called 2020. Hey, y'all. We are back. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. And during the break, you were hearing the songs by Miss D Sings. D, capital D, the letter capital C, I-N-G-S. So not sings with an S, but sings with a C. And she was on the show last week, and she was just an amazing young woman, very humble in spirit, but very powerful message, super talented. We were saying, her vocals are like a combination of Jill Scott, India Ari, and Erica Badu, all rolled up in one, but her message is so powerful. So if you get an opportunity, Google her on YouTube and look for the song 2020 by D Sings. And Be
Weird.
Weird. B-E-Y, Weird. That was the one you were just hearing. Ooh. And so, again, very powerful musical message for today. And her name is D Sings. So check her out, y'all. So we're wrapping up the show right now. We're talking about normalizing home ownership. And again, before the break, we were talking specifically about the process and how the right ways to acquire property. And I felt that discussion was important because culturally, we accept doing things in a way that we shouldn't. A back door, under the table, gray. Let's just promise ourselves that we're not going to operate in the gray. If you operate in the gray, in 2022, don't operate in the gray. And I'm emphasizing that because, can I also say this? They know you operating in the gray. And there are laws and policies created because they know you operate in the gray. So they've set traps to trap you for operating in the gray. And will throw the book at you quick fast in a hurry when you operate in the gray. And you listen to shows like this so that you don't have to operate in the gray. Don't operate in the gray. I don't want to sound like, I don't know. I don't know. We don't have to. All it is a choice. You know, just like we're going to talk about the steps. We're going to try to get some of the steps in. Oh, no, we can't. We're out of time. But just like there is a process, a home buying process, you know, you want to start working on your credit, and you want to start working on saving for a down payment. Credit scores and money for a down payment are some of the biggest, or two of the biggest reasons why we can't take a dive right into home ownership. But I shared on the show a few weeks ago my go-to credit restoration company, Blue Water Credit, www.bluewatercredit.com. Jeff Sipes, Sipes. He and his people are live and in person. They're not sending your file back to the Philippines. They are working on it right in Roseville. And Jeff will be participating in our Anchor Financial Academy, which, by the way, we had to move the dates. So I do want to make that announcement. We had to move the dates from February 25th and 26th to March 25th and 26th. So if you registered, in the very near future, you'll be receiving an update that conference has been moved, and it's due to COVID and trying to be safe. We had to keep an eye on Omicron to see what was getting ready to happen. So we didn't want to do anything too definitive until we saw the direction that was going in. And so now that it looks like things are signaling to being cleared up, we can move fast forward, full speed ahead. And so the conference has been pushed out by exactly 30 days. So you'll be receiving an update if you've already registered. And you will have the option of receiving a refund if you aren't available for the 25th and 26th of March, or if you are choosing not to participate. But if you do want to participate, you want to go to anchorfinancialacademy.org, anchorfinancialacademy.org, and register, because we will have Jeff Sipes there live and in person. And the event is actually a hybrid event. So you can appear, space is limited for people who will be able to attend in person. But if you don't attend in person, you can attend virtually. Not only will we have Jeff Sipes, but we will have classes on home buyer preparedness. We will have classes on investing for beginners, introduction to cryptocurrency, debt-free living, and again, credit restoration. And if 2022 is your year to stop living in the gray, you don't want to miss this event. You've been listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key. And remember, if you are doing what you were created to do, I will see you at the top. And now, a moment in Black history. Hey, Ange. Yes, honey. You are so welcome and congratulations. I saw your pre-approval letter, girl. Hey. Okay, you guys. I will see y'all next time. Next week, same bat channel, same bat place. Y'all know I'm off to get a taco. Bye.